needs a title. Go live. That's what we did.
A little late.
Well, it's the coffee machine's fault.
That's it. Coffee.
Sometimes it doesn't do its job very fast. It goes on strike or something. I don't know what.
Okay.
So anyway, everybody, hey, it's the Jimmy Doane Show. We're live, if you can tell. No net, no filters, no editor. It's just straight talk right here on all the news from the last few days. We do this twice a week these days. Sundays and Wednesdays, 4 o'clock New York time. You can find us around the web if you search for Doane, D-O-A-N-E. And today is the 22nd day of July, 2020. I am in the special future studio.
Okay. What is that for?
Dystopian future, why not?
Okay, dystopian. Yeah, okay.
That's where we're at these days.
Okay, good. Well, there's a couple things. Let me get cranking here. There's some clickbait. I noticed there's a little clickbait. Florida's Broward County, local. This is local stuff. Broward County is about 200 miles down the road.
Okay, yeah, sure.
And orders the residents to enforce mandatory mask rules at home because this is a virus update.
You enforce them on your family member or something? Or?
Well, no. The way it worked is that was the headline, and I'm thinking, how could you do this? Well, there's some caveats. It turns out it's not quite true. It means if you have a party in your house, then everybody's supposed to wear a mask. But as far as your intimate family members, no.
Are they allowing parties and stuff?
No. Of course
no.
No, you can't. But I'm saying if you were to have a party.
Now, this means if they show up at your house for some other reason and you're not wearing a mask, you get clubbed for that too.
Well, yeah, that's right, I guess. And I guess if the person shows up without a mask, I've noticed, as I've seen more and more people, were just walking around out in Nowheresville wearing a mask. And apparently that's a big deal. There's some places where that's supposed to be.
Well, people are, I think, a little afraid, and they're, not of the virus so much as the authorities. If you think about it, we've criminalized future potential accidents at this point. I mean, none of these people, you're not trying to get anybody sick.
Yeah.
We're trying to say that you might have an accident in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore, whatever we're going to impose upon you, you have to stay at home or do this or wear that or whatever. And it's dystopian. I mean, from my perspective, our laws don't do that. And yet here we are.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because is there a hold harmless thing for corporations can't be sued?
Well, there's coming down the pipe, like we talked about from the very beginning, day one. I said they will do a blanket. They will do a blanket sort of prohibition against suing your company if you go to work or a restaurant if you go to eat.
Okay.
Basically, they're going to say, look, the virus is out there, and you might get it, and.
But you can't sue the restaurant for giving it to you.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because it's just a place. I mean, if you get it from the food, okay.
That's called food poisoning.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Then okay, that may be different. But if it's just because you're in proximity to the restaurant or you went outside because you were going to the restaurant, you can't sue the restaurant. And
you can certainly understand, as they say, they've got the what do they call the slip and fall attorneys?
Oh yeah,
they're out there and they'll be out there.
Now, as you can imagine, this subject has been parsed out very finely.
Yeah.
Yes, the causation thing has been thought about for centuries. Yeah, I mean, in the old days, if you did something and somebody got hurt, they just whacked you. I mean, it didn't matter what you intended. Well, I mean, obviously, there's different from different places, but there was never any standardized body of law which said.
I thought it was mens rea or something.
Well, right, exactly. That's what I'm getting at. That's when they finally came up with that concept.
Yeah.
The Roman times, obviously, it's in Latin. And so they were like, you know what? Maybe if we could just worry about people who are trying to do harm and we don't worry about the accidents so much. And then...
Right.
And then of course in our now bring us forward 2,000 years, and what we have is 200 years ago we had this great system where if you had to intend to do a crime,
right,
and that was very good because we realized, as they did for 2,000 years, that if it was by an accident, then don't worry about it.
An accident.
Exactly, and so then we said, well, okay, then you can sue them for that if you want to, you can try if you can prove that there's causation and that kind of stuff, but. now we're in this weird nebulous phase where people have accepted things like DUIs as a crime. And nobody gets hurt most of the time, and nobody tries to hurt
if
anybody.
you do get hurt, that's the cause of action.
Well, but in terms of a civil thing.
Right.
Right, exactly. If you hurt somebody else, yeah, they can sue you.
Right.
And so there's a remedy right there at law, but that's not far enough for some people. They've somehow twisted it in their minds to, and it's natural. What you do is you associate the effect with the cause. And you say, well, if a bunch of school kids died on a bus, then somebody's got to be responsible. And we got to send grandma to prison if she was driving and ran a red light at that time. But you don't have to do that. You don't. There doesn't always need to be a causation thing. There doesn't always need to be a responsible party who has to go to prison. And the way you can draw a nice, clear, bright line is with intent.
Right.
And so this mask thing, it goes back to this mask thing. Nobody's trying to hurt anybody, and that's why there's this weird argument going on, because half the people realize, look, we're adult Americans. We do what we want, and if we're not trying to hurt anybody, then your rights expand as far until they come up against some other Americans. And,
well, except that what they're saying is, we've told you that if you go out, then obviously by going out without a mask, you are intending to hurt people. You are intending to kill
They
grandma.
transfer your intent. It's the same way they do with the driving. They say, well,
no, I'm not. I don't want to kill grandma.
Exactly.
Well, you do, because you're not wearing a mask.
Well, because grandma died.
Yeah.
And it's like, and so but there needs to be a rollback of that whole body of law, and causation needs to be a thing again, and intent has to be a thing again, because it's too easy to prosecute people for stuff that they didn't intend to do. And there's another thing we've seen a bunch recently is these fraud claims, where you'll see these weird influential fraud claims, like the one we reported the other day. Not the fraud, but the intimidation of the person claim.
Right.
Anyway. That's where I'm at with the mask. As far as I'm concerned, it's just not something that they can order. You either rely on people to do it, or they don't do it. And
well, they found a way around it.
The mask wearing.
The anti-maskers have found a new way to put everybody in danger. This is written from the standpoint of you're going to go kill grandma.
Right.
Anti-maskers have found a new way to put everyone in danger. The coronavirus mask protesters are employing new tactics to comply with local requirements that mandate the use of face covers indoors. Anti-maskers are using face masks made of materials that don't offer any protection against the coronavirus droplets and so forth and so on. To the dismay of doctors, some communities and businesses are making masks mandatory, which is a step in the right direction, according to this article. Those who don't respect the rules will face consequences, from fines to refusal of service. Okay, a refusal of service I can sort of understand.
That's totally understandable.
The fine I don't quite get.
No, fine is ridiculous. Fine is.
So the anti-maskers have found an incredibly, now again, remember this article is written from the you're killing grandma standpoint, incredibly dumb and irresponsible way to circumvent the new rules and put everyone in danger. And then what I thought was a telling sentence here was, there's no cure for COVID-19.
Right.
Wait a minute. There's no cure? So that means masks are forever? This, to me, reminds me a little bit about the war on terror. And I remember, I remember when they first started, it wasn't too, well, when's this going to end? What's the end look like? There is none.
As soon as we get rid of terror.
Yeah, as soon as we get rid of it. And of course, now there's no cure for COVID-19.
And I'm wondering, for example, like when the fall comes around, are there going to be a bunch of people who are clamoring for people to wear masks just for the regular flu? I mean, the regular flu is 10 times deadlier than COVID-19 if you're under 15 years old.
Yeah, okay, right.
So how come you're not wearing a mask every winter? And is that and look, the answer is because you're a free adult American. You get to make your decisions.
Well, not if you're a teenager.
Well, right. If you're not an adult, then your parent gets to make your decisions for you.
Yeah.
But that's what everybody, and this article is treating people as though they're intending.
Right. There's the primary reason. It says that's the primary reason why it's so dangerous. People who are especially vulnerable experience severe complications that can lead to death. despite not suffering from other medical conditions. Now, as you know, what they've said is that the people that are dying have other medical conditions, basically. In essence, either they're old, or they got diabetes, or they got a heart condition, or whatever it is, and they were on the way out anyway, basically. A lot of them. Now, you know, half, 50, 60, 70% or something like that had other conditions. So what this guy is saying is, he's talking about the people that don't have any other condition, and they're dying like flies, according to this thing. But I mean, this is crazy talk, because as far as I'm concerned.
Well, look, the lethality rate is dropping precipitously at all times as we get these new non-asymptomatic cases.
Right. Well, they have a lot of that, and it's interesting that as the it's obviously that this is. Look, once everybody gets it, then there's no more people that can get it.
Right.
And so.
Well, that's what apparently. I mean, you look at this graph from New York here, and it shows. Well, this is Sweden's overall deaths. Let's see. Hold on. New York will come up here in a minute, but what you can see is that it looks as though it's burned through the populations that it's going to burn through.
Yeah.
And the indications now are that the deaths are dropping, even if some infections are rising.
Well, yeah, and of course, I mean, I know it's anecdotal, and they're saying, well, you know, we're testing more people, and that's why more people. Well, okay, and other people say, no, that's not all of it. It's just that there are people that have it. Even if we haven't tested them, they got the symptoms or something like that.
Sure.
And there's a lot of them. But the main thing is the mortality. I mean, you know, look, it's bad when you get sick. I understand that when we got the sniffles.
This is New York versus Sweden right here. I mean, talk about the difference in the curve, and
yeah.
I mean, it's incredible. So I'm sorry, I interrupted. The measles. I mean.
Yeah, I mean, it's bad to be sick, and it's not say that you couldn't die, but you know, well, anyway.
The death rate on this one is still going down. The latest projection that I've saw has it between twice as deadly and 5 times as deadly as the flu overall. Mm-hmm. But you got to remember that line crosses in the middle of the age range.
Okay, right.
Such that it's less deadly than the flu for people who are under like
50 or
something,
yeah, right.
and more deadly if you're over. And there's a spike in the high 80s.
Yeah.
The point is that it's going to be out there. It's always going to be out there. And
well, they have as this one guy says, there's no cure. Mm-hmm. It's going to be there forever. Mm-hmm. So this is you know we're going to have you wear a mask for the rest of your life.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I guess look, I'd be happy if the following things came into effect. If people stopped shaking hands. If we got a bunch more automatic opening doors and things like that, so that the high traffic areas where your hands go are mitigated. If people would stay home when they're sick.
Yeah.
And if you think you're sick, or you might be getting sick, you wear a mask if you're going to go out.
Well, it's one of the things that is always been fascinating to me, especially with the youth. The child diseases is because it's mandatory. You have to go to school.
Right.
And so you got a class of 30 and you get one student in there and everybody gets it.
Well, look, up until literally 6 months ago, if you were hacking and coughing and sneezing and you went into work, nobody said a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, there was no problem.
Yeah.
People would be like, okay, good, you're a trooper. You know, bring it in, you know, coming to work anyway. Hell yeah. I mean... And now it's like you better stay at home.
Yeah.
And so to me, that's at least one positive effect. But look, at some point we got to get back to normal, the old normal, and it will happen because look, the bubonic plague is out there, Ebola's out there. There are flus that kill 100 times the percentage that COVID kills. There really are, and they're out there, and yet we go about our daily business. So and it's
well,
fine.
We should.
Yeah.
Okay, let me move on.
Yeah.
We're not. The flu is, you know.
Oh, wait, one more thing about the COVID thing.
Okay.
Well, are you still on the flu? Did you have another one? Or?
Tell me your.
Well, mine was. This one was. I saw an interesting tweet from somebody,
okay.
And they said, "Is there a way to refuse testing?" Like if and is there a way to refuse the vaccine? Is the next
That's the big deal. Is
Right.
going to be refuse the vaccine because as it is now, the childhood vaccinations are virtually mandatory if you're
Yeah.
going to go to school.
That's right.
That's the way
but
they
are
do
they
it.
But are they gonna do adults? That's because they already mandatorily make the kids go to school.
Right.
They know that they're gonna be there, so they kind of well, that's our right. to
Bring
make
your
the-"
paper that says you've had your vaccine.
That's right. But are they going to be able to force adults to take the test, and are they going to be able to force adults to take the
vaccine.
The
what
vaccine,
comes along.
right.
The thing, it'll be interesting to see. One of the things I
like if
believe.
you want to do air travel or something?
Yeah. Well, there is interesting that even the best vaccine. Of course, they haven't got them yet by a long shot. And I don't care what you say, but a lot of them they're talking about are maybe 50%. Good. So what? I mean, I'd be worried about the reaction to the vaccine. more
Right,
than
and especially because it's rushed through.
Right.
I mean, can you have some objection because this thing was created in 6 months?
Yeah, exactly.
It'll be interesting to see if you work. I bet you have less flexibility if you work in some kind of federal job.
Oh yeah.
You're a clerk at a federal. Oh, sorry, you got to take the vaccine.
Yeah, that's right.
You want that
you
job.
want that. You don't want anybody in the Fed to get sick because they're essential.
Right.
Except when they're not essential, and when the government shuts down, then you find out who's essential. Not to be done. The
Yes.
fear of the COVID, whatever it is, everybody's all panicky, and that goes on. I was listening to Rachel Maddow and a couple of the lefty people, and the words they use with this are just the scariest words on the planet. The hyperbole and all the stuff that they're talking about. And I'm wondering on a lot of these stories, when you start to hear all these words again and again, I remember, what was it? These words sometimes get into the news things. One of the things that happened years ago was when somebody was running for president and the word gravitas came out. Suddenly everybody was using the word gravitas.
Yeah.
So, but it went away. I mean, who does it now? I mean, so
That's the way words happen.
I know, but what I'm saying is they wear out, and I expect to see that with the COVID thing. Anyway, not to be outdone though.
Well, it's terror, everything dying. But go ahead. Not to be
More
outdone.
terror. NASA chief
Uh-huh.
warns that humans must prepare for a massive meteor strike.
Right.
In 2019, NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine warned an audience at the International Academy of Astronautics Planetary Defense Conference, the Planetary Defense Conference, that's good, about the very real possibility of a large meteor crashing into the Earth. We have to make sure that people understand that this is not about Hollywood. It's not about movies. This is about ultimately protecting the only planet we have right now that hosts life, and this planet is Earth. His reference to a large meteor that entered he referenced the one that blew up over Libinbrink or whatever, Russia, the one in February 2013, and it was however it was. But the main thing was that he's talking about what are you going to do, for God's sakes? I mean, everybody's going to have. I remember when I was growing up, everyone wanted to have a bomb shelter because they were going to atom bombed. I mean, you got to have a meteor. Can you imagine if one the size that wiped out the dinosaurs hits? There's nothing you can do. You're dead.
Right. But look, there's good news about the whole asteroid. There's good news and bad news about the whole asteroid meteors.
It can't be good news to have an asteroid hit the Earth.
Well, no. But the good news is that the bigger the asteroid, the more likely it is that we'll see it coming. And that gives us an ability to, all we have to do is change its trajectory by just a tiny, tiny bit.
Way back early, though.
Right, that's right. But we've got the capacity to do that these days. We launch rockets to Mars, so we could have something intercepted out at Mars distance. Put a little. All you have to do is light off a small nuclear weapon on one side of it or something, and just blow it into bits, so that then it's a huge cascading.
Well, that's
problem.
what happened in one of the movies. Right. They blew it up, and it's still.
It's turned into a bunch of razor shards.
Well, this is what happens. Look, this is what happened with the whale out in Washington State.
Right. They blew up that whale.
Blow up the whale.
Yeah.
Way to go.
Look, okay. Look, obviously we have never really thought through a solid plan on how to deflect an asteroid or meteor or whatever. But that is what you would do if there was one coming. And like I said, the bigger it is, the more easily it is to see. And so that means that the really big ones, we know where they are and we can see them coming. The problem is there's a little gap in our knowledge. As they get down into just a few meters range, they can become very, very dark and obscure, so you can't see them. No. They're also traveling at 50,000 miles an hour, so all of a sudden, one can show up like this one did in 2013.
Yes, they estimated it at 40,000 miles an hour, but yeah.
Okay, right. So anyway, they're usually between 10 and 50, somewhere around there, depending on whatever. But the point is that they're hitting with such force. It's a nuclear bomb, basically. And that's right. And we're in danger right now of any moment a nuclear explosion going off and wiping out a major city. It could happen anytime, literally, with no warning.
Well, yeah, except for the fact that the odds, when you look at you sit up there and you look at the Earth, the cities are like this big.
Well, right.
It's going to hit. Yeah, when you realize that 2/3 is in the ocean.
That's right.
Now that's bad enough with a tsunami and all that.
That's right.
But
but you're right, and it had to be a really big one to make a good-sized tsunami. I mean, a little tiny one, one that would destroy a city wouldn't make a ripple in the ocean.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, because you're talking about it's just a regular nuclear bomb.
Okay.
You know, it's like
Right.
You know, it's like the Bikini Atoll thing that they set off underwater. Okay, it's big, but it's not creating any tidal waves or anything.
Okay.
But if it hits your city, that's bad, and it could. Now the good news is, on the flip side, is the smaller that they are, the more likely they are to burn up in the atmosphere.
Right.
So there's a limiting factor on the size on the other side. So they can't be so small that we can't see them and that they get through and really cause damage. That there's a window. Unfortunately, the window's still there.
Yeah.
The window's anywhere from like 10 feet across, a meteor that's more than about 10 feet across, to about 10 meters across. Somewhere in that range, they're still big enough to cause us damage, and yet too small for us to see with our current instruments. So this guy actually has a point. If you're really worried about some type of cataclysmic event like climate change, it would be much more probabilistically, I don't know what the probability of us being destroyed or having some impact on an asteroid collision is much greater than us having some impact on the carbon of the Earth. You know, like we're not going to be able to change the carbon content of the atmosphere as easily as we could the trajectory of a meteor. And in fact, the trajectory of the meteor in the next 60 or 70 years is really the danger window. In 100 years, our laser telescopes will be good enough to pick up all those little tiny meteors, and we'll have enough of them pointed at the sky that we'll see all that stuff. But right now, there's a little bit of danger.
Space is pretty big.
It is, but you know, it grows as you get further out. So all you have to see is the interior to a certain amount. You know, Elon gets those satellites out there for the GPS. You have it so you can flip them around or something and point out the other direction and get a nice scan, and it'll eliminate most of them. And then when you factor in the probability of how often one of those things normally comes through the Earth's atmosphere, we're in pretty good condition overall.
Okay.
So
well, we have something, I forget what it is, but something like, you know, 1 million tons of space dust, you know, rocks, whatever, hits the Earth every day.
right.
And
most of it's so small it burns up.
Yeah, right. You're right. Okay, so God, it was going to bring on something else here. Damn it.
Sorry, I went on for a while on that one.
Yeah, no,
It was kind of important with the whole asteroid thing.
I know. I'm just, damn it. I got it here later anyway. Did we talk about the St. Louis couple?
No, not yet.
Okay, the St. Louis couple, they've been charged,
Yes.
of course, with a felony each.
Yes.
The St. Louis prosecutors, of course, she's a rogue prosecutor apparently, according to most people.
Yeah.
Anyway, felony gun crime for their actions as protesters marched by their home.
Mm-hmm.
The McCloskeys could each face a single felony count of an unlawful use of a weapon, and the unlawful use is exhibiting.
Right.
Charging documents say they pointed an AR-15 rifle at protesters, and she wielded a semi-automatic handgun. Now they call that, it's interesting, a semi-automatic handgun. Now you do understand that your regular Colt Western, from 1878 is a semi-automatic handgun because you pull the trigger and it fires.
Yeah,
I mean, but the semi-automatic.
That's the inflammatory language,
right?
Which is,
that's right.
It's close to automatic, and somebody will just drop the semi off of there and start calling it an automatic pistol.
Right. So anyway, placing protest, and of course it placed the protesters in fear of their. Now, of course, the thing about it is, as we know, is that they'd already broken in.
Yeah.
I mean, they had smashed down the gate.
Yeah.
They were supposed to keep them out. So they were already like super trespassing. And there was like 300 of them.
Yeah.
Now, I don't care who you are, but a 300 mob can easily turn on you. I mean, it's one of those things that no matter what, no matter how peaceful they are, they can turn on a dime.
Yeah.
And you see this all the time. It doesn't take much to light that particular.
No, if they feel aggressed in some way, I mean, it would not have been a stretch at all for somebody to have thrown something at that woman, and for her to have shot back at him.
Yeah.
And I mean, and then at that point, the mob descends, and it's
well, when you think about it. One of the great mob things that you see almost on YouTube, you can see it all the time, is when in baseball when the bench is empty.
Right. Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
what happens is the pitcher has nicked this guy, and suddenly he comes out.
And these are adult professional millionaires.
Absolutely, and that's right. And suddenly the bench is empty.
Right.
And I mean, there's 50 people on the field beating the crap out of her, and that's all it takes.
Right.
That's all it takes.
It's true. And look, this
same thing in hockey. Same thing.
And you know that this mob was looking for a fight. Looking for it. Guaranteed they would.
Look,
they would have reveled in destroying that guy's mansion. Reveled in it if he had given them one excuse to charge that house. Look, they did exactly the right thing. The good news is, there's a couple of things that are good news. One is that they would probably win if they take it to trial.
Okay.
The problem with that is that, as you may have seen in the article, that they offered them a diversion program.
Yeah.
So a diversion program, what that is that's the
re-education.
Yeah, exactly. It's the Weasleyiest way. And what they say is, well, what we want you to do is we want you to confess. Usually, it involves a confession. You want you to plead guilty. And then you jump through some hoops. Write a letter expressing your sorrow, and to the police department.
Well, you don't do that. Look, here's what you do: letter bullshit. You go into the school and you go to the blackboard and you write 500 times.
Exactly.
I will not point my gun at the protest.
Something like that. That's the kind of thing that they make them do, and then they'll agree not to put the charge on your record, but. These days, the way that charges go on people's records, it'll always still be on there now that they were charged with a felony, even if they defeat it. And so it's almost not worth having the stupid diversion. And also, once they plead guilty, they'll always be treated as some people who pled guilty. People will use that against them. Well, you pled guilty. Forget the fact that it was for a...
Well, I remember one of the things that was in the Rockford Files, remember the series with James Garner? He had been pardoned. But it all came up that you were a felon.
Right.
What do you mean? It never happened. I was totally exonerated. But it always was right there.
That's right.
It kept coming
And that's
up.
the way that it does. And if there's something goes wrong with their little probation thing, then they can use the guilty plea against him.
Right.
They can come back and say, well,
he's an attorney, and he knows. Both of them are attorneys. They know this.
They totally know this.
Yeah.
But now the other good news is that apparently the Attorney General for the state has stepped in and filed a motion to dismiss the charges.
Right. Well, that's let's hope. It's interesting because they said that the investigators conducted numerous witness interviews, and of course this is one of those things
Hey, were you in fear?
Yeah, were you in fear? Right. Exactly. I was really scared.
I was scared.
He was holding a gun. We were just walking down the road. I mean, it took about 50 of us to tear that gate down, but other than that,
that's right.
Okay. So anyway, it is illegal to. Of course, the attorney Kimberly Gardner said it is illegal to wave weapons in a threatening manner at those participating in a nonviolent protest.
That's right.
Okay.
But they weren't in a nonviolent protest.
No,
that's why you do a motion to dismiss right away.
Yeah.
You come back and you say, look, they were committing a crime, and in fact, it was trespass.
Yeah.
And so, look, Gardner is just
well, obviously, but it'll be interesting to see because in some of these places, as you've seen recently, a lot of this stuff it's we have now the cancel. The canceling thing where people are being canceled, the cancel culture and stuff like that. When you haven't done anything actually, and suddenly you're out of a job or whatever it is, So anyway, okay.
These guys will be fine in terms of that. They're not going to get canceled at their job. So
okay, let's see. I'm going to skip over that one there. I'm going to move on to the New York Democrats want to tax stock trades as the state revenues plummet. Now this has been around for a long time. Bernie wanted to do this. He wanted a big deal on this. What they want to do, they have an exemption right now. When you trade your stocks, if you buy one or sell it or something like that, you're supposed to be able to tax that, but there's an exemption for stock trades. You don't have a tax on trades, on stock trades. They want to have something like 1/10 of a penny or something per trade. What you don't understand is when you look at the volume on the New York Stock Exchange, it's like $1 billion or $2 billion a day. And even if it's 1/10 of a cent or 100th of a cent, they're talking about getting $13 billion a year out of this. Now, one of the things that's going to happen, you can bet, because as you know, there are, I don't know how much of the trading is done by the computers. A lot. It's like way over half, I believe.
Yeah.
And these are hundreds of thousands of shares in an instant, back and forth, using these algorithms or whatever. Well, you can imagine what would happen if they start to
tax that,
and they're just going to say we're moving the New York Stock Exchange out of New York.
Yeah.
It will now be the New Jersey Stock Exchange, or something.
Yeah. Well, look, we are expecting a massive tax wave at some point.
They're never going to reduce spending. Well, Lord forbid that they would do when they have a revenue shortfall. I think they said the revenue shortfall is $61 billion over 4 years, and they have to have some in New York, and they have to have some way to make it up. So this thing, they said, taxing these trades could raise that money back in 4 years. So $61 billion in 4 years. But yeah.
Well, like I said, there's going to be a wave of taxation to try. Some people are going to, I guess, try to pay for it, all the spending through taxation. I don't know how much.
Well, the thing about it is this is one of those things that it's only 1/10 of a cent. What's the problem here?
Right. Yeah.
And this is what what they did here locally for our school tax. They said, well, it's only half a penny.
Right. Well, let me ask you this: do you think it's more likely that the government? Now this is state government, so the states have to raise taxes. They can't just print money.
No.
So I guess that was my question was, do you think it's more likely that the Fed is just gonna, instead of raising taxes, they just keep printing?
Oh no, there's no question about that.
Right.
No, they're talking about another $1 trillion bailout thing. Where are you getting that money's going to be printed up?
Right.
Of course.
Right.
I don't know how much the deficit was when Obama left office. It was 22 trillion or something. It's 27 now.
Yeah, exactly. It was under 20 when he left, but even so, but the states have no choice but to raise taxes, and they're going to be in huge revenue shortfalls from all kinds of lack of taxation in other areas, I would think.
Right, and they're gonna and the city's the same way.
Right,
they are saying we have to cut. We're going to cut people are going to starve to death because you're going to have to cut essential services, but they're not going to cut them. They're going to find a way to raise taxes, and this is one of the ways that they think they're going to do it. And what they don't realize, and of course, one of the things, this guy Andrew Silverman, he's a Bloomberg intelligence analyst. He carted out the old Rahm Emanuel thing if never let a crisis go to waste. And he says, if ever there was an opportune moment for New York to resurrect the stock transfer tax, it's now. The state legislature is probably more amenable now than it has been in decades. Well, that's, you never let a crisis go to waste. So we're out of money, so now we have to raise taxes, and it's only 1/10 of a cent.
Yeah.
So, $13 billion worth. So the transfer tax could drive revenue. Oh, the other thing about it is, since they're stock trades, there's a lot of people that Ms. Jimmy, she trades her stocks.
Right.
But she's Florida. And
Yeah.
but she's going to have a New York tax
Right.
on her. Well, and of course New York is sitting there saying, that's great because we have somebody in Florida paying the tax.
Mm-hmm.
And they do that here, of course, with our bed tax. They say, well, we're not paying it. You get however many hundreds of thousands of dollars that they get from the bed tax here locally to pay for some boondoggly thing. But we're not paying it. It's the people that travel through here. And of course, that I look at that, and I remember when I drove out to California one time, and I noticed in El Paso that the tax on the room was 17%. Mm-hmm. It was about 4 taxes. But
That's why there's places right outside of El Paso.
Right, exactly. And I found them too, by God.
The
next time I went through there, I sure didn't go there. Mm-hmm. So anyway, but the other thing is that the New York legislature has signed a letter suggesting that the state consider raising taxes on the rich before it cuts spending.
Sure.
They want to raise the taxes on billionaires and large corporations.
Uh-huh.
So apparently what happens is the way the reason there's no tax, there is a tax on the stock transfers, but it's 100% rebate. So effectively there's not.
Oh, okay.
So they could eliminate the rebate.
Yeah.
So
well, we'll see. What I expect all kinds of novel and interesting taxes to
there's no
pop up.
question. I mean, they when you think about it, the way the feds do it, of course, is with inflation, which
Right.
is the hidden tax.
Right.
It is a monster tax.
Right.
And that's because we don't have a gold standard.
But that's politically palatable. I mean,
oh yeah, of course it is.
Right.
It's a
Because
stealth
nobody
tax.
understands. Right. But it'll be interesting to see what the states do.
Silver hits $20.
It's up to 23 already.
No.
Yeah.
Well, I know that didn't Schiff come out and say this is the big move?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is 23. I remember thinking about. I called up. I was going to buy this maybe 3 weeks ago. It was like at 16 or something. I was going to buy.
Yeah, it got down to 15 in May.
Yeah.
Or
I was gonna
maybe
buy
12
some
in May.
junk
actually.
silver, but that's gone through the ceiling now too.
Well, 23. I mean, if you look at if you follow the charts and you look at the former double top.
Yeah. You're right.
If you think about it, and I thought about this last time because silver went to 50 in 1980.
Yeah.
When $50 was worth like $500 now, or at least $250.
A bunch, yeah.
A bunch.
Well, there was a reason for that.
I know there was a special reason for it, but. So then, fast forward to 2008, it got back to 50.
Yeah, it did, right.
And
Not for the same reason.
no, for a totally different reason. But that 50 was obviously not comparable to the prior 50.
No.
In terms of actual value. And so 50 today would not be comparable to the 50 then even. So I'm thinking, 50 is not a bad number to think about in terms of where it's going.
Well, of course, and as they say, as you know, silver is more of a commodity trade than it is like gold is usually just a store of value type trade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So got a
we'll
little
see.
bit.
So anyway, I thought it was interesting that that Peter Schiff is saying this is a breakout, and so let's go, boys.
Gold's up $100 in the last 2 weeks or something.
Yeah. Speaking of things that went up, the LeBron James rookie card,
Yes.
$1.8 million at auction.
Now this is clearly an indication of the deep systemic and abiding racism that exists
Exactly.
in our country.
Because he's black, right?
Right.
Okay. Yeah. $1.8 million, setting a record. Now, these are for cards produced in and apparently there's a cutoff in 1980.
Oh yeah.
Of course, he's still playing and everything, but before that, if you have an Onus Wagner or some of those that, from the early 20s, then those are worth millions. I mean, some of those cards.
Yeah, well, I mean, the card qualities changed drastically, as you can imagine. And in the 80s, they started putting out shiny, reflective, 3D image, all kinds of stuff. And
well, this particular LeBron, they only made 23 of them. So that was his number.
Oh, okay.
And so there's another card that somebody else, the previous rookie card had gone for $922,000 or something. But and there were only 5 of those or something. But again, one of the things I look at is if you have that number of, if it's that rare and you already know it. Yeah, I mean, I wonder if it's really worth that kind of. It wouldn't be for me, but worth for somebody.
Yeah, look, you know how it is.
China.
It's collector stuff.
Yeah, no, that's
collector.
true.
You add the value of stuff to other people's value. Like a thing is worth more than just what it's worth. It's worth.
Oh yeah.
It's worth everything it's worth.
Right.
So it's like
that's what the market figures.
I know exactly. It adds in all those factors. To somebody, it's worth all that shit. $1.8 million.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was interesting that it was graded. Now it's on a scale of 0 to 10, and it was graded 9.5 mint gem by the Beckett grading service. I don't know who that is, but of the 23 cards, there were only 2 of them that were graded that high. Huh?
Somebody with a monocle and a British accent.
I guess, yeah. Okay, we're talking about now. I did want to mention something. We were talking a minute ago about the. This is what now comes to me about the asteroids coming in and so forth. That we're going to. The Arabs, the UAE is going to. Doing a Mars lander.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's being launched from Tokyo, from Japan. The United Arab Emirates spacecraft rocketed into blue skies from a Japanese launch center on Monday. I guess that was like 2 days ago. Start of a 7-month journey to Mars on the Arab world's first mission. There are I don't know how many are going to be launched in the next couple of weeks, but apparently, as everybody knows, Mars takes about twice as long to go around the Earth as the Earth does, to go around the Sun.
Yeah.
We have 365 days, and Mars is about twice that.
Well, keep going. Yeah.
So the launch window is short, and it's like for about a month now. It's like every 2 years or something. It's like a month long where you can actually do the launch. Otherwise, it's too far.
Yeah.
And I forget exactly what it is. They launch.
Well, you got to wait until they're around together.
But then you have to also time it.
Yeah.
Because it takes a couple of months to get over there. So everybody's moving. That's a calculus program if there ever was one.
Actually, that's just. Yeah.
I mean, when you think about it, the original satellites that went out, that kind of stuff, the Voyagers and all that stuff, Voyager and all that stuff, it was on slide rules. I mean, they won't know computers back then.
Nope.
None. So anyway, now I was reading a thing that the new Mars Rover that we're getting ready to launch, is really supposed to be fantastic. There's a thing on YouTube that tells about it. It's called the.
Is it going to have like a bunch of little robots inside of it? So it gets there and it like bunch of them pop out?
No. No, it's not. It's all by. What it is going to do though is going to collect some soil samples and store them for retrieval later on. To come back to Earth, but not this time.
Right.
It's going to have, but it's quite sophisticated. Needless to say, this and I it's not called Opportunity, is it? What's the one?
No, that was the.
That was one of this one's called not Progress. It starts with a P, I think. But this is the one that's going to be launched here pretty quick, and I think it's going to take the usual 7 or 8 months to get there minimum. And then it goes, but it's huge. It weighs like a ton. I mean, it's unbelievable. And of course, this is the one that's going to use the same landing. The first couple of Mars ones that used the big balloons that bounced in there. Now the last one that's still operational, used the one where it came down on a thing and then fired some rockets and
the triple.
Yeah, the triple. This new one's going to do that too. But what they were talking in the YouTube video about what's on this thing, unbelievable. I mean, they have really gone
top notch. Huh?
I mean, top notch. That's right. But I thought it was interesting that the UAE, India's launching one, China's launching one. What? To Mars.
Yeah, that's interesting that the UAE
they got
have
the money.
Any interest in going to Mars.
Well, what they've done is they're figuring it's going to land on the 50th anniversary of let's see, the liftoff of the Mars. It's named Amal or Hope. Followed the next few days by China and the United States. It's supposed to reach there in February 2021. As the UAE celebrates 50 years since the country's formation. it will start transmitting Martian atmospheric data. That's apparently it's a big
the
deal.
calls to prayer is what
I guess something like that. So I just
it's good. 50-year anniversary. Well, I guess why not? I guess, like you said, if they got the money.
Now I've got another little thing here that I want to chit chat about. I'm going out of order here, but what about Portland?
Portland, yeah.
Portlandia, Portland.
Yeah, well,
what do you think about that?
it's interesting. This is, I mean, the Portland riots have been going on for a while, I guess, and
Yeah, it's been.
you talking about the grabbing of the people by the federal officers?
Yep.
Or something? Well, yeah. Well, we talked about that from the dictatorial standpoint. Remember, we were saying if it's only Portland, big deal.
Okay.
And it's so what? I mean, look, it's
Well, one of the things that I see is what I think what they're saying is, although it's wider than that, is there's probably a federal courthouse or a federal building.
that's exactly what's been going on.
Okay, so the feds are in there to protect
That's right.
there. Now, what a lot of people don't realize is, yeah, you might, so might not be your jam after all. What does that mean?
Yeah. Well, if you can't stomach one little arbitrary political abduction by secret police.
Oh, socialism might not be your jam after all. What does that mean?
That means they might not be your thing. Like if you don't like random political abductions, maybe you don't like socialism.
Oh, okay.
You know.
All right. Well, right. Well, anyway, the thing about it is the parallel between that and the start of the Civil War is interesting.
Well, what? How so? Tim Pool was
I'll tell you
talking
exactly why.
about. Okay.
What happened was there was a federal fort in
Yeah.
and it wasn't until the Sumter or whatever it was, they fired on the federal fort.
Yeah.
And that's what, quote, started the Civil War.
Yeah, but that was a state doing that, and this is just some protesters. I mean, the state of Portland is not firing on the federal courthouse.
No, but the feds are coming in. The city of Portland has ordered the feds out of there.
I
Says,
realize.
Get out.
Right.
You're not supposed to be here. And now let's see what's going to happen. So I mean, obviously the feds could do anything they wanted, but
Right.
I'm sitting there when I think about the instigation of the Civil War was the firing on Fort Sumter, and this we've got here. The feds are protecting the federal courthouse or whatever.
You don't think we're anywhere close to any kind of civil conflict, do you?
Yeah.
Really?
Let me tell you, it's
There's no
let me tell you this. It doesn't take much when you think about it. When they shot the Archduke or whatever it was.
Yeah, but that's because all of the underlying tensions that are in place.
Okay.
I mean, there's got to be something that is. Even the Fort Sumter thing, it was this underlying conflict that had been brewing for years.
Oh, no question. I mean, I understand that.
Well, who's in opposition in terms of, who's...
Let me tell you what I did read. This is a little anecdotal, but there was a letter or something from some grandmother, and she was watching this go on, and I forget exactly what it was, but normally the stuff that had been going on down there every night, the protests were like 100 or 200 people. Apparently, this one just the other day was 1,000 people.
Okay.
And I forget exactly I think it was because people were being snatched off the streets into black vans.
Okay.
And so forth. Now by feds. And now it did turn out that they said that the feds were in the usual camo and they had their names on it and said police or feds or something like that.
Right.
So it wasn't quite the surreptitious thing that it was made out to be. But
Yeah.
this one lady said that she saw this stuff on television about the people being snatched. And and she's like 80 years old, and she went down, put her mask on, and went down and joined the protest. And apparently, another 600 or 700 or 800 people did the same thing. So it got larger. It got almost 10 times larger, 5 times larger in one day.
Right.
Because of this sort of thing. Well, the only thing you have to have is like another Kent State thing.
Yeah, but who are the sides? I mean, the problem is that there's no there's no other side. Everybody's on the same side as the protesters from the standpoint of what they're actually wanting to do. I mean, if you know, there's, except for the bashing up of the buildings and stuff, the people are on their side. There's nobody to oppose them. I mean,
Nobody to oppose.
Nobody to oppose anybody. I mean, what's the fight over? Like, who's going to arm up and say we need to do what and go
We
where?
need to get rid of the feds by force.
Yeah, I don't know that any. I mean, there's no possibility of just getting rid of the feds. I mean, by force.
As Lincoln made sure we didn't do that again.
Yeah, well, and I mean, and these are not like rebel. These are not like state militia people. These are just
Not yet.
Well, but even the state's not even. I mean, the state is sort of acquiescing to letting it all happen.
Oh,
but
yeah.
But they're not actively supporting them from the standpoint of providing them arms or anything like that. And there's no state police down here attacking the federal building. So I mean, I just don't see that much.
Okay.
In
well, you
conflict.
might be right, but I'll tell you, this is the kind of stuff that can spiral out of control pretty quick. As when you have, as we just talked about a minute ago, if you have a mob and you have a mob of 1,000 people, I'll tell you, it doesn't take much to light that baby off.
Well, but then the mob does what they're going to do, and then it's over for then. I mean, like
let me tell you, you say that, but you look at the fallout from the white policeman on the neck of what's his name, Floyd or whatever.
Well, theoretically, all of this is fallout from.
I know that, but that's what I'm saying is that you start to see that exponentially going out of control. You can see it.
Well, I mean, I think that's what we're seeing. But my point is that everybody's in. There's no counter protesters. You know, these protesters are out there, and there's no opposition group. I mean, it's like at some point they're just going to get tired and go home. I mean,
well, you'd think they'd have done it already, because apparently this 100 people protest in downtown Portland has been going on for a month or two.
Well, yeah, for months and stuff. I mean, but and yeah, it's fights over little things here and there, but
well, I am a little nervous about it because of the and as I said before, the feds. I guess I understand that the feds would want to go protect their courthouse, but the snatching of the people off the street is a little, I think, above the.
Well, yeah, probably, but they're probably just releasing them right away.
They might be.
They're probably driving them out of the area.
It's interesting we don't hear about that part.
Well, not yet. It just started.
Okay.
Now they may be being held in federal custody somewhere, but I doubt it. I don't think they're going to go to that much trouble.
What's
There's
the
too many
charge?
of them.
Yeah.
Well, Well, it would be assault on federal property. I mean, they could get. I mean, you saw this this video here. This is them attacking This is the federal building right here.
Okay.
And you can see it's all graffitied up.
Okay.
And so, I mean, theoretically, they could walk out there and arrest all these people for conspiracy to damage a federal building.
Okay.
And, I mean, certainly you could get all of the instigators if you wanted. I mean, they're the feds going inside the building right there. And, they retreated out of the way. But, and these kids are like in freaking bike helmets and with umbrellas for shields.
Oh yeah, an umbrella, right? Yeah, can you imagine? Yeah.
That's gonna stop around right there.
Well, anyway, I'll be interested to follow on the Portland thing. Now I got one more thing here.
Okay,
right at the end, and this is another fear thing.
Okay.
And I like this about predicting the future. Most polar bears to disappear by 2100 predicts a study. Melting Arctic sea ice, blah, blah, cause starvation, reproductive failure for many as early as 2040. The scientists warn.
Mm-hmm.
Scientists have predicted for the first time when, where, and how polar bears are likely to disappear, warning that if greenhouse gas emissions stay on their current trajectory, all but a few polar bear populations in the Arctic will be gone by 2100. As early as 2040, it's very likely that many polar bears will begin to experience reproductive failure, leading to local extinctions, according to a study published in the Nature Climate Change So right away they've got a bias. But I'm sitting there thinking, it's so easy to come out with something that's going to happen at 2100. Yeah, okay.
Oh, is that what they said? 2100?
2100, yeah.
Oh my God, it's so ridiculous.
We're talking 80 years from now.
Yeah.
You know, how can you...
Look,
how
did
can
these
you
guys
dispute
go
this?
back and read the studies from 20 years ago that predicted there would be no polar bears today? Because, I mean, that's what there were. And today the polar bear population is bigger than it's ever been.
And but you still see the documentaries on how they're all dying. The sea ice, how can they have to hang out to catch the seals and so forth?
Yeah, the thin bears and stuff. It's all bullshit. I mean, it literally, like, you can the population, you can chart the population growth of the polar bears.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I heard that, but again, you hear the real fear people are saying that they're dying out, and the other people say no, they're actually increasing, and
they have been. I don't know what they're talking about for, people project out these trends as if they're going to.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is that it's. I remember when I used to give talks when the Macintosh and the computers came out, and actually when I started to give talks to people about stuff, and I would predict the future all the time.
Sure.
Who's gonna get me on this? Well, I'm sitting there in 1980 and saying, by the year 2000, blah blah blah. Well, nobody's called me up and said, George,
the internet,
and Jimmy,
you didn't mention the internet.
That's right. Yeah, you didn't even know, you idiot. Sure, no.
All right. Well, yeah. Well, okay. Well, as we go out here, I got one more thing.
Okay.
Did you see Obama and Biden had a little sit down?
No, I saw it. Okay, what? Tell me.
Very briefly. The thing I saw was only 30 seconds or
Okay.
so, or maybe it was a minute and a half. And the first
elbows.
Yeah, basically. Well, they were on opposite sides of the room.
Okay.
And but Biden said his little spiel, and then Obama came out with what could only be described as very British praise.
Oh, is that right? Yeah.
He basically said, "Joe's only got one head. What are you worried about?" The best thing he could say about him is,
well, it's interesting that
his lizard skin isn't showing.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting that Scott Adams, I think it was this morning, was talking about there are other people that were on Biden's side that are saying, if we can just hold off until 2024.
You could see the strain in Obama. Like, okay, I'm gonna say the best thing I can say about Joe.
Yeah.
And
apparently, there's other people that have been cheering for the Biden have now started to think, I wonder if can we hold it together until the election?
Well, that's what I've been saying. I've been questioning that.
Yeah.
I've been asking, because all he's got to do is,
we can do that,
Yeah.
but I mean the big supporters are saying, what's going to happen? I mean, who's going to be running the show?
If he just comes out now, like I'll say, I saw another thing with Biden speaking for like 30 minutes, and he seemed to do just fine.
Okay.
And so if that happens, no problem. But if he comes out and he just says, we hold these truths to be self-evident, the things.
Yeah. Well, of course, one of the things that maybe, like, as I've seen before, there are people that when they start to go demento, they're fine in the mornings on their meds, and then by the afternoon, things start to fall apart.
Well, there you go.
I mean, there are people like that.
Yeah. Well, we'll see, I guess. Maybe
Okay.
Will we see in time, I guess, is the question. All right. Hey. Another one in the bag. Oops. That's not my music. There we go. No, that's not my music. There we go.
Well, I'm so excited about my new computer that I put an SSD. And I'll tell you, it is 1,000 times faster than it was before.
Yeah?
Of course, the hard drive was failing, so.
All right. So, who's the people that... Computer
Dog Bites Computer here locally.
Dog Bites, huh?
Yeah, Dog Bites. They've been around here for 20 years. I didn't know that.
Really?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Dog Bites. All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Oh, I didn't even check to see. Hey, Kenny. Hey, Scott. Oh, matching shirts. Yeah, kind of did.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, hey, hope you guys had a little fun. And we'll be back soon.